Hello, welcome to Conversations for the Moving Self. I am your host, Megan, a lifelong movement artist and facilitator. Each week, I invite you inside of the honest conversations that I have been having with some incredibly inspiring movement and well-being practitioners, as we unpack the beautiful roller coaster it is to pursue a lifestyle built around movement and well-being. Join us as we share and reflect on the moments where movement lights your soul on fire to the situations where you begin to question everything. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Charmaine is our first guest for Conversations for the Moving Self, and I'm super excited to have Charmaine here. Charmaine's a close friend from school and also just someone that I think throughout freelancing has always felt like a super warm and grounding presence to be around. Also as a mover, but both as a mover and within Charmaine's presence, I feel she brings a really nice balance between dynamism and softness to the world. And I think I've always been super inspired by the ability to return back to like this more internal and more gentle space while equally like still having a lot of power and light that comes from her. So I'm super excited to just chat with Charmaine a little bit.
You're gonna make me cry already. Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Thank you for coming. I think to start, I will start with our opening question, which is, how are you showing up for your movement and well-being practice today?
Today.
Very much can be in this hour.
Yeah. I think today I woke up feeling very present in my body, which was kind of a surprising thing because I think in the last little while I felt a bit distant from like the feelings that I'm actually feeling. It feels like I need time to go through something and process it before like everything starts to settle into my body, into like making sense in my mind. But today I woke up feeling very in tune, I suppose, with like how I was feeling and where my body was at. I was a bit sore, just from like I think lack of movement actually, which is surprising because usually it's the other way around. But yeah, I think I realized that in the next little while, I want to reconnect with a lot of movement practices that I've maybe taken a break from this summer, or just had less opportunity to actually partake in. But I think, I woke up feeling quite grateful for just being in a place where it felt like I was present in my body. I think whenever I'm commuting, it's sometimes hard to maintain that because there's just like so much noise and like input coming in. So it almost means that I have to like really try hard to kind of create a bubble that I exist in movement wise, like even just walking to the tube and like sitting on the tube. I feel like I'm always very aware of how much space I'm taking up, like what my body's doing, is anyone like looking, that kind of thing. But today I felt a little like it felt a little easier to just be and not have to like micromanage myself in a public space. Which isn't always the case for me, but yeah, so I feel like I'm in a good and positive place today in regards to movement and like well-being as well.
No, it's super. I think what came up as I was listening was like this thing of also navigating like living in a city, which is often where a lot of dance or movement and freelance careers have more like access to work, or and so a lot of us like gravitate towards these big human filled spaces, which is super nice and means there's so much to feed off of, but also can be really loud and hard to take in everything.
Mm.
But yeah, also this thing of like taking up space and being able to do it in an easeful way and not like
Yes.
forcing it.
In a way that I think is like more unapologetic, because as much as I would like to imagine myself as someone who is quite like confident in themselves and in the way that they exist in space, I don't think that comes very naturally to me. So it is something that I've like had to practice and also just like lock in
Yeah.
in the moment. Just try and okay, you don't need to care about like what's happening around you. Obviously be aware of it and be kind, but not like obsess over what's happening or get like overwhelmed by everything that's happening. So I think when it does happen in a more natural way, it feels like, yeah, just a sense of relief. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm just moving through the world like everyone else in this
Mm,
situation, and it's not like a task. It's not something that has to get done.
be
It's
a
just,
certain way and
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. It's in Charmaine and I were catching up earlier about our summers and things, and um it made me think you've been away from London for a bit as well,
Yeah.
and like what comes up when you shift out of a city space and then back into a city space, like how much
Mm.
as movers specifically we're like hyper aware of our bodies as well.
Yes.
And then yeah, like how has summer been, also like transitioning back into the city life, like
Mm.
what do you do to maintain the things that maybe you are able to build when you're away from the
Yeah.
city and then coming back into the space?
So I think just as a person in general, transitions are always complex for me because it feels like it takes a little while anyway for like my body and my mind to settle in whatever environment I'm in. And then I get used to it and it's like, okay, I got the routine, I got it figured out, and then it's like transitioning away from that into something new, even if it's not actually new, like I live here. But coming back to London is always a little bit um, there's comfort in like the familiarity of the routine. I don't have to think about the steps of like where I'm going or navigating as
Yeah.
much because obviously I live here. So there is kind of this warmth of coming back that's quite nice of like, oh yeah, I can just like walk to the coffee shop. This is like my little area of town that feels comfortable for me.
Mm.
Um, but then there is also that period of time, which sometimes is like multiple weeks, I feel, where I am reminded of just like how much there is to constantly take in. And I think as someone who, like, we were also talking about our time here starting at LCDS starting during COVID and how a busy city at that time was not as busy, much more digestible, I feel, even though there were, it was not a great time for the world. It was easier to manage. And I think I have this feeling sometimes when I return to London that I'm behind. Because like everyone's still here. It's almost like the parallel universe kind of feeling of like London is its own universe that just keeps moving. And if
Mm.
you leave it, it keeps moving without you. And then
Yeah.
when you get back, it's like you're
Ah.
like
Yeah.
grasping on to like it's almost like a treadmill when it's going fast already and then you have to like find your way onto it to
Yeah.
um keep up, which is such a weird thing because like nobody's expecting, like there was nothing when I returned to London, there was nothing here that was like expecting me to just jump in straight away, but I had that feeling. um
It's
yeah.
I went on a run with two friends from our
Mm.
year last week, and we were talking about the exact same thing, but like in the physical sense of
Yeah.
like running on a treadmill versus running on solid ground.
Mm.
And like I tend to have more motivation on the treadmill
Yeah.
because it doesn't stop.
Yeah, like you have no choice.
Yeah, and like we were on a run just like by a canal and it was beautiful and I was like, yeah, but I could also be just walking here. Like,
Mm,
but it's this same thing. Like I so agree with that feeling where it's like you get back to London and the nervous system just goes, oh yeah, this is what we do here,
right, yeah.
rather than like even if there isn't anything on your
Yeah,
calendar that's
yeah.
at a certain time for the next 48 hours or whatever. But
Yeah. I think
yeah,
speaking of nervous system as well, I know I'm the type of person that is kind of like a sponge. So, like, I have friends who I envy so much because it almost feels like um, their like bodily awareness, but also their mind and just the way that they exist in space is theirs. Like they have just a way of being, and no matter where they are, that's their way of being, and they can preserve that in whatever environment they're in. And that's not to say that maybe there aren't moments where they struggle. Of course, everyone does. But I feel like I'm the opposite. I'm someone, regardless of whether I intend to or not, or whether I want to, I just sort of absorb the sense of the environment that I'm in, or the general, like, I don't know, yeah, the
yeah,
general, what's the right word? I don't know, like vibe and
yeah,
energy of the space. So if everything's moving fast around me, I just feel like I'm being swept up with it. Um, and the same with like if there are spaces that feel uncomfortable, it's like, okay, now I'm uncomfortable, even though I could potentially, I hope to at some point find the way to just be like, actually, I'm fine here.
yeah,
Even if there's things in this space or like people in this space that are confusing my body and my mind, I don't have to like let that change my
yeah, way
state.
of existing. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, I I relate a lot. I think maybe it's something about like maybe it is something about being super connected
I think so.
to our bodies, but then also yeah, there are other people that
Yeah.
move a lot as well, and and like have big movement practice that still I'm like very
Yeah.
impressed by of how they maintain
Mm.
just a complete sense of self. But also what I was gonna say is like I think the external perception of it sometimes gets really interesting. Where like
Yeah.
to me, I think you come across quite able to still really maintain
Yeah.
who you are and how you like to exist in any space.
Mm.
And yeah, it actually made me think as you were speaking about like made me think as we were studying. I felt like throughout the 3 years I saw people find their way of like building their own structure within the structure that we had, and
Yeah.
whether that was the way that their breaks between classes looked
Mm.
or just how they operated in the studio, um, almost to still be able to maintain that sense of self and with all of these different practices and teachers passing by us a lot. And I wondered if you had any reflections from training and when that kind of came in. Was it something that came in during your time in
Yeah.
university, or was it something that you built?
This is a really good question. I think it's an evolving journey because I don't think I've like reached that point yet where I'm like, yes, I have a very clear understanding of like always how to do that. But I think in my time at LCDS, I got a better understanding of my limits, maybe, which I
Mm,
think helped to instruct how I could like maintain a sense of control and like, yeah, just almost peace in the way that I was existing and moving in classes as well. Um, because I think for a lot of my life, even as a mover, I had sort of a feeling of like I should be able to do all of these things like the people around me are doing them. So if it was in like a class and I don't know, there was some sequence that was messing with my brain and I couldn't pick it up as quickly, I would feel like I needed to be able to learn the material in the same way that the people next to me were learning the material, which I think is maybe a more general issue with like historically with the dance industry and the dance world of like there is an instructor and they're teaching something and like it's up to you whether or not you pick it up, and they're not maybe always as concerned with trying to meet people in different places. That's a large generalization, obviously. I think we were lucky to have lots of instructors who were much more like conscientious of how um, people might best pick up material and stuff like that. But definitely when I was younger, I had this feeling of um, I need to be able to do this the way that it's prescribed, like the way that it's being taught, the way that other people are picking it up. Um, and I think through experience and through probably like failure to do that, I realized, okay, so this isn't working for me. I need to find a different way or a different approach or ask more questions or like whatever it is to figure out how I can pick this up, learn this, adopt this, feel comfortable, whatever it was. And I think that kind of happened quicker at LCDS, probably because we were training like every day with varying styles, varying teachers, all of this kind of thing really forced me to understand like, okay, here are my limits in terms of um, this kind of methodology doesn't really click with me naturally. So if I'm not understanding it, then I need to ask more questions or I need to like take a break from that. Or,
Mm,
you know, the people around me are learning easily with counts. I often just like feel where it sits in the music, and for me that is the easiest way. Doesn't mean that you can't like hone other skills,
of
obviously,
course.
but it was things like that, like realizing that I didn't have to be experiencing or doing things the way that everyone else was doing them that gave me the chance to figure out what actually did work for me, which sometimes was, yeah, stepping away for a minute to like cool down, reconnect with my brain
Yeah.
and not let it, because I think I have the tendency to let like my thoughts overwhelm me, which comes out physically as well in a moment of like stress or whatever. So I think what I figured out at LCDS is that like, oh, it's okay to take what you need and step away when you can't. Like it's better to allow yourself that room
Yeah.
than to try and like force something that's not gonna work for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That
yeah.
the yeah, I feel like I also really felt that shift in school with this
Mm,
same mindset of like the understanding that sometimes space, whether that's within a certain class or within forcing yourself into a certain box within the industry or whatever, like that actually giving yourself a bit more space can maybe lead you on a path that feels both more pleasant
yeah.
like with where you align as a human, but also just like maybe something that then in the long term is more sustainable and gives you
100%.
more
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the long term journey.
I think there were moments where I felt frustration, um, and I think that opened up the way for like, yeah, really sitting down and saying, this is not working. Like, what can I do differently? What can I allow myself that I'm not allowing right now? I think that allowed me to find a place where I felt more capable. Because there were, of course, like when you're training anything, there's moments where you can't do something or something's like particularly difficult. And I'm someone that generally punishes myself for those moments, even though with other people I find like zero reason to do that. Like I'm very much someone who preaches like you don't have to be perfect at anything. Like I don't think that exists anyway. But there were moments where I felt that frustration and would kind of self punish for those like areas of lacking, I suppose. But then in allowing myself to take more time, more space, or like find a quieter space, or just find different ways of practicing the material on my own time that felt more intuitive to my natural way of working. It was like that allowance actually made me more capable than I could have been if I had tried pushing
Yeah.
the way of like moving and being that wasn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I guess like it's also this thing of then if you're forcing something, you're going to be hitting walls,
Yeah.
and it's going to become less enjoyable, which is not the point. And like it's
And
too
harder
hard
to sustain in that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
really nice. And yeah, like I guess means that you can I said to a family member in school, they were asking how studying was going, and I was like, yeah, actually, like I think studying dance is teaching me to be a bit more human.
Mm.
And at first they were like, wait, what? Like, do you not like dance anymore? And I was like, no, no, no. Like, I think because we were in such an intensive space, also with we had quite a small school with
Yeah.
quite a small year as well, it meant that we were in such an insular bubble around dance and around
Mm.
movement and around each other that then like I felt like it encouraged me more to give myself time away, whether that was in my 15-minute break to like actually go and just zone out for 15 minutes,
Yeah.
or to in the evenings just not think about anything that we did that day.
Yeah.
So then the next day you could show up with a fuller cup or whatever. And yeah, what now that you're freelancing and
Yep.
facing the roller coaster of that, what do you feel like is something that allows you to kind of like return back to what aligns with where you want to go rather than feeling pressured to kind of this exact same thing of conforming with the way that maybe you see people doing things on social media or
Yeah.
wherever?
I it's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard. I think because I like my natural disposition is whether I like it or not to like see everything that's happening. Like even when I'm purposefully like taking time away from social media, or even when I'm purposefully like maybe not engaging with that kind of conversation of like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, if I'm taking a break from that, it still feels like it's this like ever present um, thing. And I think my brain just kind of naturally zeroes in on like those details generally. Um, so it is like has to be a much more active practice for me to return to like center to figure out
Mm.
what it is that I want to do, what it is that I feel like actually I would like is a good balance of something that I feel like I could do and would be good at, but also that I desire to do, but also like not everything you do is going to be something that you love to do. Like there's this balancing of kind of like swallowing the reality pill of like, yeah, you're going to work some jobs that you just don't like or that like aren't fulfilling you all the time in the way that you would hope or whatever. And there has to be that kind of reality as well as still prioritizing like, oh, what does feel good for me to invest in, what makes like sense financially, like all of this
Yeah.
stuff, all of these things. um so I don't think I'm very good at it. Like I think
It's okay.
I think I have to like almost daily remind myself that okay, like no, don't worry about that. We have to refocus on where are you at, what's happening mentally, physically. Like I think as someone who also has a lot going on physically all the time with my health, it's sometimes about just prioritizing that. And that can be really hard as someone who's like a movement artist. I think any dancer, any movement artist in general would probably relate to this feeling of like when you're injured and that feeling of almost dissociation from the thing that you do. Like
Yeah.
this is the thing you do and you can't do it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, so there are like difficult moments where you just sometimes have to prioritize, like, okay, I'm sick. I have to just focus on my health. And that means that I can't be worrying about like what I should be doing. So sometimes there's that kind of like focus. And I think I've been slowly becoming like more gentle with myself and kinder to myself in those moments, because especially when your health is like not doing the best, putting more pressure on yourself is just gonna make the situation worse. Like it's not gonna improve your state by any means.
100%.
um so that's been something that's actually been kind of freeing a little bit, is in certain moments it's just like okay, I have to focus on the thing that's going to prioritize my well-being. I have to give myself time. I have to be kind to myself in this moment. And I think actual like physical practices that I do for that is a lot of journaling, like making sure that my mental state is as at peace as it can be. I think really really impacts the way that my physical state is.
Mm.
But then also I think something that's quite nice about being freelance is that my time is mine, which means that if I'm having a day where like things are just not working, I know that I I'm not, there might not be so much expected of me in that day, so I can actually take the time to fill my cup back up or like take care of my body in whatever way, which I think is not something that like one always has the luxury of if you're working in a company or like a 9 to 5 job every day. So I do feel very grateful for the time that freelancing gives me to like design what will work best for me. Um, that being said, I think it can be also really hard for me to engage in the thing that I love to do, which is moving, without feeling any pressure to do it in a productive way.
Mm.
Like when
Mm.
you're in training, there's so many, like all of it's productive because you're just, you know, getting new experiences, learning things all the time. But you also have these moments of like, okay, you're working on a choreography that is maybe the main focus, but then you've booked studio time, or you are just like in the building stretching, doing all of these things that are still movement adjacent, but they don't feel like they hold as much pressure because they're kind of like the in-betweens.
Yeah.
But when you're freelance, at least for me, I feel like if I'm booking a studio space to move, I find it really hard to just like, this is my training time, or like this is my in between time. Like, no, I've booked the studio.
I'm paying for
I'm
it.
paying for it. So now I need to like be productive. And that in general is like, well, what is that? Like be productive. That comes in so many forms. Like training, giving yourself some time to move is also being productive, but sometimes it doesn't feel like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's the hardest thing that I'm navigating in freelancing, is that feeling of um yeah, like returning to center, figuring out what I want in the capacity of like also feeling like I need to be getting things done all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I as you said that, it reminded me of something my one of my friends said as she was graduating school. She was
Mm-hmm.
like, again, like you have to return to like the joy of dance. And I was like,
Mm.
yeah, but sometimes it's so hard when there's the financial pressure and the health things and the like just the chaos of a freelance life. And how do you
Yeah.
release the like also capitalistic and 21st century mindset that we have of like
Mm.
producing things all the time? And she was like, yeah, but just like have a little dance in your kitchen every day. And I was
Yeah.
like, haha, yeah. And then I started like thinking about it later and was like, no, she's actually so right. Like we I think once you start to pursue a movement practice,
Mm.
then it it takes a new form,
Yeah.
which is incredible and everything I've ever wished for. But then like how you
But it's your job. Like then it
yeah,
becomes also a job,
and the thing that
which
pays your bills and like
yeah.
yeah, and so then how do you just allow yourself to, because you're right, like even this, if we did just have a little kitchen dance
Yeah.
moment, like that is still very productive in like a
Mm.
well-being
Yeah,
sense,
exactly.
but so often it gets put on like the bottom of the to-do list.
Right. Yeah.
And also even it being on the to-do list is a little bit scary, but like
Yeah.
yeah, someone I was chatting with a friend last night just about life, and
Mm.
uh they were saying like actually as dancers we have so much freedom to do our art practice and our movement in whatever space,
Yeah.
where like a lot of artists, like maybe you need certain materials or like a much larger
Yeah.
space. And obviously once you get in the studio and you have more square footage, it's so much
It's nicer, but it can be done.
right, so hard though to like
Yeah.
yeah, and then also like give yourself the permission
Yeah.
when it isn't happening
Yeah.
to just be like, okay, this is the chapter that I'm in,
Right.
and maybe the uh, joy is a bit further away. Maybe it's something that's more about like finding a calmer
Yeah.
day-to-day rhythm or prioritizing health or finances this week, and maybe
Yeah.
next week I can
Yeah.
have a bit more like
Yeah.
light-hearted
Mm.
free form practice with it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I think the paradox as well is that if you go into, at least I find for myself, if I go into like a studio session being saying to myself, something needs to come out of this, like you need to be productive in some way, you need to make some material, you need to film something, whatever it is, um, the less I like anything I make.
so
Like
true.
and so that's also a really hard like pill to swallow, almost, like knowing that under pressure I enjoy not even just the process less, I enjoy the outcome less. So why would I force myself to feel that way, knowing that the outcome is not going to be satisfactory to me anyway? But it's a really hard mindset to like break out of, and I think that's something that as a freelance artist, because your time is your own and because you're kind of like designing your own um, routine, your own way of working, essentially, you kind of have to come up with a balance of, yeah, like when to apply pressure, when to like ease up, when to say, okay, I'm putting in a strict deadline for myself because I know that I need to get this done at some point, without that becoming something that then like influences the product that you're making in a way that isn't what you want it to
Yeah,
be. Which I think maybe I find a bit harder when I'm the one making the deadlines for myself, because I don't know, maybe my brain processes deadlines differently. Like if there's some external entity telling me like this needs to be done at this point, that just seems like a fact
yeah,
of life. Like, okay, this is the deadline. And not that there isn't pressure, but it just means that like I have to work and I have to figure out, I have to just keep working and, shaping and molding whatever it is that I'm working on. If I've given myself a deadline for something, for whatever reason, it becomes like so much more internal that I'm then like adding even more pressure on top of that to myself. I don't know
A
why that is,
hundred
but
percent. No, yeah. I relate a lot as well, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's something as well, like about if something external has set the deadline, like the responsibility and care for that deadline is in their hands
yeah.
or the entity's hands or whatever. Where like if it's something that is also your own project, maybe there's a bit more of like a personal emotional relationship with that
Mm,
deadline. Like may what I'm thinking of is like if say it's a piece and you're trying to make some sort of application deadline, if it's for a specific
yeah.
show or scratch night or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
then
yeah.
it's like, okay, if I miss that deadline, there's no chance I'm getting it.
Yeah, there's no opportunity anymore. Yeah.
Where if it's something that you're just trying to fully generate through yourself, maybe there's a bit more like, well, if I don't do it, then like it's still the blame returns back to you, but then
Yeah.
it also becomes like this uh I remember when I was working on Sunshine Boys,
Mm,
which was a piece that Charmaine and I were like working on together.
yeah.
Like I had said to a couple different people throughout that chapter, like there was times when I felt I was really able to just generate and release and share, and then there was other moments where I was it's so close to me
Mm,
that I can't even fully see it
yeah.
with a clear headspace.
Yeah.
And yeah, how
Yeah.
to I was helping a friend film a self tape over the weekend, and the deadline was in like 12 hours,
Mm,
and we had the studio for like 15 minutes, and it was like just generate,
yeah.
go, film, whatever. And we were talking afterwards of like also when there's someone else in the space, somehow already like the mind can't spiral as
Yeah.
much,
It's so true.
and you just like bring more acceptance mentally, which then allows the body to offer more.
I
Where
think you're
like
so on the point with that.
right,
Yeah.
where if you book a studio for that kind of stuff, sometimes it's like you end up having 2 hours and
Happens.
nothing happens.
Yeah.
But
Or like nothing that you're satisfied with.
mm,
There is something about I think the brain under the right amount of pressure, like not negative pressure, but the right amount of pressure that feels like, okay, like I have no choice but to make something. And in a weird paradoxical way, that is freeing for the body to just, it's almost like when fight or flight kicks in, and not in a like anxiety kind of way, but just like your body responds to its environment. And so if it's like we have 10 minutes to do this, and if it's not done now, it won't be done. It's just like, okay, the body somehow figures that it's now or never. And I don't think it for me would be healthy to like always live like that. Um, but I think there are moments where that is really actually so freeing, so constructive. Um, I think about it a lot. There was a moment a few years ago when my mum was visiting London, and I brought her to the studio to help me film
so
some
cute.
clips and everything. And it was interesting because I think my parents, I'm an only child, so I think my parents are like some of the only people that have seen like everything that's happened in my life and like know kind of every version of me, I guess. And so I think my body also just responds differently when I'm around them because it knows that it can without like any form of judgment or whatever. And it was such an interesting experience like having her film me because it really felt like my body was just completely free in that moment. Because I could like fall over, I could do whatever, and I have a very like loving, supportive mom, and she would just be like, "That looks great." I like,
Yeah.
and that was an interesting, because obviously she's seen when I was younger, like all my performances, my dad too, and everything, but it had been a long time since they'd been able to like see me perform, because whenever there's performances, they're, in the US or whatever. So it was this like kind of reconnecting with maybe also like a child, like the child in me, in a weird way of like, oh, like moving in a space with other people can feel this freeing. Like you don't have to you don't always have to be concerned with other people and their perception of the way you're moving or whatever. Like it can just be your body moving, and so what if you look like goofy in a moment? We all have those moments. You have to allow the space for the weird and the like stupid and the ugly to happen in order to get anything that feels like authentic.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Which then I think reminds me of this idea that, like, when you're watching a performer, you feel more connected to them anyway when they are coming from an authentic place. Where if they're uptight and they're nervous and there's something that they're holding, then
you can
you
sense
can't
it.
get in as much.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can sense it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so lovely.
I know.
Oh, no, it's so true.
Yeah.
I think we are pushing it on time.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna wrap it there.
Yeah,
actually.
thank you so much.
But it was such a lovely time chatting
was
with
really
you.
lovely.
And yeah, just I think super nice to kind of catch up and reflect on the freelance movement careers that we have, because they can sometimes feel so fast paced, and just to have a moment to check in is really
and
nice.
find connection, because I think that's another thing, is like sometimes it can be a little isolating, especially coming out of like training where you're seeing the same people every day, working together every day. So
Yeah.
thank you for this little moment of connecting and
yeah,
sharing.
thank you so much for coming, and everyone stay tuned. We'll be launching the podcast on the 20th of September, so please share with your friends, and yeah, comment anything that you would like to hear us chat about. We'll have different guests on for each episode, but hopefully we'll have Charmaine on again someday.
I would love that. But also, yeah, good luck with the rest of the episodes. I look forward to listening.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Charmaine, give me a hug.
Thank you so much for listening to the first episode of Conversations for the Moving Self. I'm extremely excited for this project to be live and to be sharing these incredible artists with you and a little bit about our journeys together. Thank you so much to Charmaine for this first episode and being our first guest. I invite everyone to stay tuned for the next episode. You can find us on all your main streaming platforms. And see you soon on Conversations for the Moving Self. Give a like, give a follow, leave any comments of questions or thoughts you have from the first episode, or anything you'd like to hear us chat about. See you next time on Conversations for the Moving Self.